Thank you, Alok. Thank you. I think interesting session earlier, diverse discussions on sustainability, and we'll try to live up to the benchmark the set in. I think I think it's a very, very important topic we're going to talk about. I think it's the most important thing for me at least. I'm from H&R Johnson, so we basically, the brand Johnson Tiles, most of you must be knowing it. We're into tiles and bathware. So in the world I am in the biggest mistake somebody can do in the construction world when you talk about is not about what paint you choose or the furniture you buy, but I think it's about the weak foundation, right? At H&R Johnson, we always ensure that the foundation of the house people live in are rock solid. But today customers are not buying just what you are making, but why you are making it, right? But there's a challenge in this today's world of trends and reels. How much of it is actually, how much of the purpose is at the North Star, or how much of it is clever marketing optics? So to deconstruct, I've got a great panel here who's going to help us answer those questions. Kushal, Ashutosh, Karishma, Adityan, and Deepti, thank you for being here and spending time. The way we'll do it is, I'll set a question for you guys, and I would like to understand from your organization perspective, what do you think about it? And would be great if you can just back it up with an example, so it'll be easy to comprehend. Let's talk about authenticity versus optics, the one we talked about, right? When I set the tone. For each of you, you are all brand custodians, right? So how do you ensure that brands, the purpose is genuinely lived through the organization and not just through marketing? So Kushal, do you want to take a shot at it first?
Sure. Thank you so much for the question. I think when we look at the benchmarks set by the biggies of the world, when you look at the Google, the Apple, all of these brands, so to speak, and I often talk about this example from Ford, essentially, actually. Ford has been there for the longest time. They have a certain set of principles that they follow. They have a certain set of products that they're trying to build, and they have always worked on certain drivers that that their products aim to give to the world. But when you actually look at behind the scenes action, so I'll take up this example of a job interview that my brother was having with this organization. Essentially, they have the same set of questions for the last 4 or 5 decades, so to speak, which is an essential for anyone who joins that organization. It's not the basic metal aptitude test that a lot of organizations have. It's not like any of your regular tell me about yourself questions. It is just about what do you feel at heart. And in case somebody fails that exam, that person cannot sit for that exam again for the next 3-4 years, so to speak. Because what it aims to say is that if at the core you do not embody those principles, you can never be a part of an organization that tries to achieve those principles for its customers, and they are very particular about that. So my brother luckily passed that exam, but I mean that's how they work. Likewise, you would see a lot of new age brands that are trying to do that. So I won't name the brands, so to speak, but there are a lot of brands, when they talk about, I'll talk about just sustainability in the sense, right? When they do talk about sustainability in, say, a food production business or, in a clothing business, they also ensure that, how do they commute? How do they, how do they transport the material, so to speak? If they are promoting, a lot of green fuel, so to speak, right? Whether it is also, used by the employees to travel, so to speak, right? So that has to come from within. So yeah, I think, it is important for brands to not just look at it from a revenue driver, but to look at it, how can it actually impact what they do? How can they create that, create that impact in the industry? Very quick thing, at my current organization, which is RateGain, it's from a travel SaaS organization. We essentially try to, how our vision and purpose is placed in the sense we're trying to be that, one integrated platform for travel and hospitality. And, Metli might know of this coming from Amadeus as they are one of our clients. We're trying to build that one integrated platform for travel and hospitality, which help in revenue generation through acquisition, retention, and wallet share expansion, right? When we talk about this one integrated brand, we start looking at, okay, it is obviously powered with AI as of today, right? But does that embody in what we do as well? Internally, what we do. So AI, for instance, has been around for the longest time. It has been, not for the longest time, for the last 3-4 years, there has been a lot of discussion because of generative AI. There are 3 things that we are very particular about when it comes to AI. And AI, everybody has heard of AI is only as good as the data it is trained on, right? So that's one which is essential to us, that, no AI product is built on any, we don't venture into any AI product unless we have ample data for it. Second part is, is it compliant both in terms of privacy and in terms of, certain compliances around safety, so to speak. So we are very particular about it. But the third part, which is the most important part, is when we are talking about actual revenue generation, right? We don't go about by giving out solutions which are just, to create a top of the mind recall or top of the mind, say publicity, so to speak, but are actually solving real life problems. So while we have this for the customer side of it, for employees, we thought of what is it that they actually want, from an HR POV. What is it that they actually want when it comes to your HRBPs of the world, so to speak. So we actually created this AI solution, which is called Remo. It is a AI employee that we have, not for the products, not for anything. We are not replacing people. We are trying to solve for this one problem, which is a very real life problem, is that as of today, people are hesitant in talking to real people about their problems. You would have read so often about people, talking about real traumas in their life to a ChatGPT of the world, right? But they're not able to share that with a real person. So that Remo app essentially is something which is all of those compliant, based on the right data, based on with all the guardrails of privacy and security, but at the same time solving a real problem, that is, can people talk to me? Our employees can essentially talk to that app, or talk to that bot, so to speak, to ask any question associated with job, talk about any problems that they are facing within the job, very freely, even bitch about their bosses for that matter, but very freely, without it being judged. And that bot essentially is trained on what we aim to embody for our employees. And so it answers that in line with our business goals, in line with our purpose, and so on and so forth. So that is key to solve the real problem.
Yeah, I think Kushal, that's really good to hear what you guys are attempting to do. I'll come up with a follow-up question from the customers you serve. When I just hear from everybody else, I have a follow-up question for you, but I'll just park it now. Ashutosh, over to you. Thanks. Interesting name. Ashutosh means easy to please,
yes,
right? And Ketrutosh, I was just Googling, means customer delight, right?
Beautiful.
So I think, and Tosh is there in both. So,
Yes.
Ashutosh, Ketrutosh, so interesting. In your field of consulting, how do you create that, how do you create that purpose for your partners and not just become like a vendor or a supplier in that transactional sense? So how do you create that purpose?
Perfect. Well, firstly, thank you for pronouncing it right. Kretru is a tongue twister. I've heard it many times not being pronounced well, so thank you for doing that right. Thank you. Well, and with your permission, if I may, I'll just take one minor step back and talk about the purpose first. because I feel for purpose to be authentic, purpose needs to be defined well. So let me exemplify. I'll give a few examples and tell me if you resonate. Enabling mobility. That's a purpose statement of Goodyear. We all know Goodyear is a tire manufacturer. So enabling mobility is its purpose, which means it's not only clear, it's actionable, but it's also future-proofing, because tomorrow if the future of mobility is flying in the air, then it need not manufacture tires, it will manufacture probably fan blades for the drones and other things, right? So it's future-proofing, it's actionable, it's clear, right? Let's take an example of Dove, which is we ensure that the positive experience of beauty is accessible to every woman in the world. So it's again very clear about who it is targeting, how it is targeting, for what it is targeting. If you are in the new product development function of the company, you know what kind of products to build, for whom, absolutely clear, right? But now let me give you another example and tell me if you resonate, okay? I won't ask you to show your hands because I don't want you to be politically astute. But the brand purpose reads like this, okay? It serves public good, number one. Second part is it empowers people globally. And the third is that it brings people together in new ways possible, right? So the first two are slightly abstract philosophy. The third is slightly getting there in terms of what they do. Any guesses? Which brand is this? Yes, please. Sorry? No, it's Apple. Yeah, it's a fact that nobody could answer clearly shows how the brand purpose is. I'm not taking sides, I'm not answering. But you see, purpose cannot be philosophical, abstract. Apple's brand purpose used to be think different when Steve Jobs used to be at the helm, and we know how it translated on the ground. They did think differently. They brought in iPhone, iPad, MacBook Pro, you name it, right? And now you know how many innovations have come out of Apple in the last 5 years. I won't talk about it, right? Now, why am I insisting on this is because, to your question now, right? I run a management consultancy which is niche in terms of I help bridge the gap between strategy, execution, and customers' perception. And the net result I commit is retention, cross-sell, upsell. That's my commit, that's what I do. I have a client which is a food ingredients manufacturer based out of Kochi, Kerala. Phenomenal company. It manufactures pretty much everything, seasonings, flavors, colors, plant-based foods, you name it. So great company, grew from 100 crore to 1,000 crore in a short time. The same MD, the same set of senior leaders. And now they are struggling because they were the best vendors, to kind of quote your word as well for it. They were the best vendors. They said yes to any order that came their way and delivered it come what may. Phenomenal leadership, great strength, great functions. But now when I started driving this transformation exercise for them, I realized that they are struggling because now, in order to say yes to every order that was coming their way, they were saying yes to short-term orders, smaller companies, and letting go of the HULs of the world because their capacity was full, planning was all over, and they couldn't fulfill it, right? So I asked them, what helped you grow from 100 crore to 1,000 crore, that 10x, would it be same for you to grow from 1,000 crore to 10,000 crore, or would you have to redefine your purpose? And then we created a peak purposing workshop session. We figured out the new purpose, and the new purpose is that they are not food ingredient manufacturers, but they are product innovation partners enabling faster time to market. Now what it does is suddenly the core muscle was not production, the core muscle was innovation, new product development. It was innovating with the likes of HUL and asking them, what do you want to innovate on? We'll innovate for you. We'll co-create with you. We'll work with you. Which also meant saying no to people which they don't want to fulfill anymore, opening up the capacity, saying no to non-profitable deals. And the first thing, the feedback I got from my MD when I did this exercise was, Ashutosh, you screwed it up. You know, you made me lose a revenue pipeline that I had. But a month down the line, he said, thank you, because now I'm more profitable. I have a better clients, a better brands. So authenticity not just means having a clear, actionable purpose, but having a purpose which is translated on the ground, seen by your clients, seen by your employees. And lastly, what it does is internally, if you're a manager on a Monday morning, sitting in the office, struggling with a problem, the purpose helps you make those tough choices, take those tough decisions when facing a tough situation. And if you can do it, what more do you want?
Great, Ashutosh, thank you. I think good examples, and I think what I completely agree is that you cannot have, the purpose has to be simple for the consumers to understand. And I think Avik said, no jargons, Yeah, it has to be simple. You can't be philosophical. So yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think good examples about Goodyear, Dove, and Apple. So thank you for that. Moving on, Karishma, like we were discussing, interesting work you guys are doing in Thinkly, curating content, talking about deep reads and all. Tell me, while doing this, you're in this world of fast pace, you're probably actually asking people to slow down, learn, right? So how do you create a purpose? How do you make it more authentic for the consumers who are accessing Thinkly to make it look more genuine than just a business goal? How do you do that?
No, sure. Thanks for the question. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So I'll go back to your first question because that's what we started off with for the entire panel, and I'll pick it up. I think today we're glad that, I'm personally glad that we're discussing this topic because all of us feel performance pressure. And it's real. And I'm sure that, all of us as marketers or, leaders of an organization, you are looking at numbers. But every brand ultimately is looking at longevity. And in my humble view, performance marketing can translate into transactions. But purpose is what gives you trust. And what trust does is gets you customer retention. Your customers are going out, trying out your products, your services, there's upsell, cross-sell, that translates into numbers, customer advocacy, so, the referrals come in. Suddenly the CAC starts looking far better. And the right partners or collaborations come through. So I think it is very important that as a brand, you have a clear purpose there. And honestly, while marketing can go out there and communicate, and you can do PR and social media, there's so many available mediums today. But it is truly leadership who can operationalize it. Everybody is looking at leadership, internal stakeholders, external stakeholders. And in my humble view, it's again looking at the signals that are sent out. Whom are you hiring? Whom are you partnering with? What gets rewarded internally? What kind of behavior? What do you refuse to do? Going back to his example of, they had vendors, the business had HULs of the world, and then they moved down to smaller businesses and how it, affected them. I think it is very important that we are very clear right at the beginning. There's clarity and there's integrity, and you pull it through. And it's honestly in times of tremendous pressure. That's when you look at an organization and see what have they decided to do. So I think I go back to Taj Mahal Hotel, 2611, Kasabs of the world sitting there with their AK-47s. There were, I believe, some 500 guests, 600 employees, and there are some 36 exits. I'm sure each and every employee knew how to get out and save themselves. I think what Taj did is not simply training. It's a cultural conditioning that, my instinct to save myself, I'm still standing there wanting to protect all the guests. I think that's what happens when purpose is lived top down. It starts from leadership, and then there were trainees, there were interns, they have all stayed back there. So I think that is purpose, getting translated from, going out there, and it doesn't lie in PowerPoint decks or on your website for that matter. How do you live through it? And coming to Thinkly, so a quick, sort of a description what I do, and for the people who don't know about Thinkly. Thinkly is in the content space, so we are up against the LinkedIns and the Instas of the world, right? So while it sounds very dramatic, and when you looked at the first year numbers and you were like, look at the dashboards, man, what's happening with the metrics? But I think where, we were clear that what's the purpose? Why are we even looking at a business like Thinkly, wherein we want people to slow down, wherein we want knowledge and eventually that translate into wisdom to be mainstay is because I think all of us innately, most of us, would like to learn. There is always curiosity. While these sound big words, to actually break it down, and how did we go about it? Is that we looked at best of the content there, and that's how this tie-ups with MIT and Harvard and Fast Company, all of those came through. That was a signal. Like I said, whom did we partner with? ये Thinkly कौन है? Thinkly क्या कर रहा है? You're going to look up. You're going to look at what credibility do we have. You build trust. And that's how the numbers come in and, the monetization happens. Everybody, like I think Maithili said, that while there is, sustainability, but you're looking at running a hardcore business. We are looking at numbers. We are looking at getting better and looking at scale. So I think that's how we look at it. Yeah.
I'm actually creating awareness for all your brands. So you will have a lot of searches today on your website. Yeah. So, yeah, I think, Adityan, I was just reading through, you guys are the Netflix of audio in a way, right? When you have Audible and you have, Spotify, we have Pocket FM doing a great job. But yeah, coming back to the main question, how do you ensure that in an organization, it flows through the organization, it is authentic, the purpose is authentic and not just optics?
I think companies try very hard to sort of distill what are the rules that you want to follow as a company, right? What are the things that you want to do as a company? What is it that you want your employees to act like? How do you want your products to be consumed and things like that? And often everybody forgets that, look, once your product is out in the world, you have almost zero control over how people are going to use it. I think the AI chat guys are realizing this. I think Elon doesn't care to an extent what we do with Grok, and it gets misused a shit ton. But it's what it is. I mean, if you give people access to something and if you tell them to make something off of it, right, they're pretty much going to do what they like. But what actually is a guiding principle for a lot of people is, look, how are you really trying to help your consumer? And if that is more or less in a clear sort of boundary and you got guardrails for it, I think that ends up contributing more effectively. And I think for a lot of companies who focused on, hey, I just want to put a product out there and I just want to maximize my profit, right? You're not really thought about how a consumer is going to use it. But versus if you're going to think about what is the real consumer pain point, and I'll give you Pocket FMs, for example, right? Rohan was working with Paytm at that point of time. He used to live in Gurgaon with his parents, go to Noida every day, 2 hours one way, 2 hours back. And you spend 2 hours on a metro or a car, you stare at your screen. If you're like me, you're going to have a headache or you're going to feel road sick after a while, right? But you also don't want to do nothing. Like, it feels very unproductive to just sit there and twiddle your thumbs, basically, right? So for somebody who's seeking entertainment, he said that, look, there doesn't seem to be a solution in the market that's geared for somebody like him. So he solved his problem. He solved the problem that he had, which was, what do I do for that 3 to 4 hours that I'm commuting to work every day, where I'd love to sort of consume entertainment, but nobody's gearing anything for me specifically, right? I mean, there's a ton of podcasts and things like that, but honestly, like, and I think all of us have faced this, I listen to a podcast for more than 20 minutes and I'm slowly dozing off a little bit, right? Watching it on YouTube, okay, I'll give it 30 minutes maybe. But after a point, it does get repetitive. Like, they're just going around that one topic again and again and again. Versus when it's entertainment, like, I see how my mother-in-law's grip to Hotstar. She's the top 0.1 percentile of so many shows now. They need to start sending stuff to my house now, right? But it's just that, it's entertainment, so it keeps you gripped. It keeps you sort of there because there's so much happening around the corner constantly, right? And nobody saw that as an insight. Nobody saw that as an opportunity. They saw that as an opportunity. They fixed the problem for themselves. And when they fix the problem for themselves, when you put it out in the world, it got used in exactly the way they want. So they didn't need a 10 commandments of how to use Pocket FM, right? We just put it out there and said, look, this is what this is going to solve. And people used it exactly the way people expected it to be. And of course, now we are changing ease of use in a lot of ways, right? We're changing the fact that, look, there are certain policies that we had that we could sort of think about, which is that, look, stories don't need to just come from the most famous people in the country. I think all of us have that one uncle, cousin who's a great storyteller, right? We're just making it more democratic for those guys to come and put their stories on our platform. So we're just sort of now feeding into that story cycle that we've created, right? So our attention to detail to things that are born from the product are again focused on making the product better so that it's a better experience for the consumer. Today we are a company that's 7 years old. We have 400,000 titles on our platform. There are very few platforms that can scale to that size, right? And we need it also because we have 12 billion minutes of content that's consumed every month almost right now. So that kind of consumption means that you're constantly churning out new content, which means you want new writers, new publishers, new people to come in and give you new story formats, basically, right? So your purpose then becomes very focused on that story more than anything else. So yeah, like there are brands that will need it. Like so Coca-Cola is selling sugar water, and it's a great brand. I think open happiness is a great commandment. But it's not born off of the product primarily. They're adding in a feeling to it so that there's a certain feeling of happiness that you get every time you open the bottle, right? So they're pushing you in a direction which aids them long term. Same with Red Bull. I think when we all think of Red Bull, we think of adrenaline. We don't think of a can of, again, sugared water at the end of the day, right? But those are very powerful stories of brands that have need to create a purpose. I think there are some brands that will live up to the purpose just because a product is meant to primarily fulfill one very specific need, and others will need to create a purpose as in when required kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think Pocket FM definitely is a great example, and I think you guys are also doing a great job on helping creators come on board, and through AI. I think AI stories today and in the right place today. Coming to Deepti, I think interesting piece of work you guys are doing. I was talking to the earlier, trying to change the narrative. And when I was looking at your website, was saying why should gold be tucked away, and why can't be used every day? And I think that's every women's ask, right? Why can't we do that? And I think that's you guys are trying to solve that problem in a way. What's your take on authenticity versus optics, and how does it flow through the organization?
I'll just go back a bit, since I've been around in the industry, I've worked with the agency, publications, and brands, of course. There was a time a decade back when, brands suddenly jumped onto the bandwagon that content is the king. Then came the era of, how to make the content viral. And then after that, it was about storytelling, all right? The narrative that you are setting for your brand. But if that storytelling does not culminate into value creation for your customer, if it is not backed by capabilities, if it is not embedded in the culture of the organization, it is a very short-lived run, I would say. The growth is not scalable. At Kumari, the founders, they come from a family of jewelers, DP Jewelers, they have an 85-year-old legacy. And they have always talked about purity at a time, purity of gold at a time when even this hallmark, BIS hallmark did not even exist. So, they have been known for it. But then over a period of time, it was all about, occasions, bridals, weddings, larger moments. Gradually, as Supriya, who's very, very passionate about, what she does, she's the founder of Kumari. She figured it out, she said, why should it always be locked away? Why is it only restricted to a wedding or a birthday party? Why can't it wear it daily? But then when it came to daily wear, there were very few and limited choices. Something you may not want to wear for an evening wear, something you may not want to carry. Because for us, the moment a woman gets married, you should have something, chain pehni chahiye, you should wear a bangle, gold, etc., etc. But then if it is something which is not worthy, if I don't want to carry it, what's the point? So from that perspective, they figure it out, and while they're just 4 years old, they have been I would say very calm and composed in terms of not scaling it in spite of having a legacy. For them, it is about educating, it is about driving and communicating with the customer of what they are actually looking for, and then talking exactly what the need for the customer it is today. So yeah, that is what they're doing.
I think interesting perspective. And what I hear is it's very important for brands to instead of doing talk the talk or doing walk the talk, right? So that's what I'm getting. Now, one is of course purpose, and I think what Maithili said is that we can't just talk about sustainability; it also has to balance. And I also agree. Moving on, coming to the next question is all about how do we put a value to purpose, and how does purpose and profitability balance it out? So, can purpose-driven strategies really deliver measurable, business growth? And how should brands evaluate the return on purpose? So, you want to start, Kushal? Maybe Dipti, you start.
Yeah, so, when you talk about purpose, it has to have future relevance. You have to keep innovating, as with regards to the pipeline. If that does not happen, at the end of the day, we are all in a business. It has to be profitable, it has to be scalable. But at the end of the day, when it comes to value creation, you can't just be talking. It can't be just faff. There has to be content, there has to be material, there has to be a tangible benefit for the consumer. And that's how you are going to build further, when it comes to your portfolio, etc., all of that.
And how do you measure it? I mean, how do you measure profitability of a purpose-driven effort? How do you do that?
So I'll tell you, with my current organization, we're very small. We are just 2 stores in Mumbai, 1 in Indore. Maybe, people say, oh, the traffic is very low on my website. I have only 20,000 daily hits on my website. But when I look back at the data, my repeat customer is very high. I have a repeat customer coming back, and in fact, somebody who steps into my store, my conversion is as high as 60%. So, we know that back at the organization, that we are doing something right is the reason why I'm building onto a pipeline which is like a loyal customer base for me, even though it is very small, but those milestones are worth it.
Okay. I will come back to you on a follow-up question in terms of how do you really communicate that purpose and use it to build your business. But I'll ask Adityan, for Pocket FM, while you just mentioned about kind of, the work you're doing in building your library, bring in more creators, how do you communicate that purpose, and how do you ensure that that purpose is driving that business for you, rather than just your marketing efforts of building the brand? Is purpose really helping you aid that growth, and how do you measure it?
Correct. And I'll give you an example to start, right? And I'll get to how that sort of guides us a little at Pocket FM. I'm sure all of you have heard of Under Armour. Some of you possibly use the products and things like that, right? And they were formed and founded with a very simple goal, which is, can we make better performing athlete wear more than anything else? So they created the first sweat-free sort of jersey for football, basically, right? And that's how they were really born in the US and things like that. So at one point, they turned around and said, look, our purpose is to ensure that we keep enhancing athlete performance. And it's something that the products actually did, right? So it's hey, we have a clear product, clear customer, and we know how to marry the two more than anything else. Many years into that journey, by the time they're doing about 10, 20 billion, they started buying apps which would help you measure your performance and things like that, right? Now, when you step back and you look at it from a lens of, hey, this is a natural extension of the consumer's life, it does seem like, okay, I have athleisure, I have athlete wear, I have all of these things that help you. Now I'll help you track it so that you can get better and better and better. But what actually happened was that these were distractions. These became ways that you're getting carried away from the core, because measuring didn't help you enhance if what you're wearing wasn't helping you enhance it anyways, basically, right? The biggest problem was that the distractions were taking your time away from your core purpose, which was to enhance how athletes were actually doing on the field with the clothing you were providing for them. So as the clothing got worse, people didn't look at your brand as an enhancement to their progress on a daily basis anymore. So why would they care about the apps anymore, basically, right? So foundationally, you lost the consumer. So every add-on that technically made sense in the overall brand Venn diagram didn't anyway live up to the purpose. So I think when we look at it from our own perspective, it's that, look, we're not sitting and trying to build out saying, kal consumer udhar jayega. No, we're getting a lot of signals from the consumer today. We are understanding what they're consuming today, what they're looking to consume already, right? I'm trying to just cater to that demand at this point of time. I'm not shifting from my primary goals of saying, hey, consumers listening to stories, let me also give them music. मैं अगला Spotify भी बन जाऊंगा. It's very easy to say those things, right? Because lowest hanging fruit is what we've all been told that let's go for it. Because this is a side business. We can just put in maybe 30 million there instead of the 100 million we put in here, and maybe that will become the next $1 billion business, right? It's purity of purpose that lets you actually exist. Today, if I get into Spotify's game, they might probably have me for lunch. And is it really worth getting into that game? I mean, there is already so much competition. By the way, the music labels own a piece of Spotify. Are they going to help Spotify or are they going to help me, basically? Versus, do I get into the podcast game? Then who am I competing with? Am I competing with YouTube? Then am I competing with Audible? Am I competing with Spotify? Am I competing with Apple Podcasts? All of that, right? Versus in the game I'm in, I've clearly got market share. I'm dictating the path that we follow. I've got a better pulse on the consumer. And the idea is that, okay, maybe I won't be the master of 5 different market spaces, but I will own mine better than anybody else, and I will also cater to mine better than anybody else. And yes, it is tempting to say that there is this low-hanging fruit, but I think our purpose is also our blinders here. It's meant to ignore distractions. It's meant to ignore things that could become detrimental to the primary purpose I have on a day-to-day basis, right? So what I'm then trying to do is step back and say, hey, this doesn't necessarily change the experience. It's just something that I think is a good add-on, but might not necessarily change the life of my consumer.
A follow-up question for you. I mean, there's always a lure to increase business. I mean, you're in a business, so again, the same question. You can't just keep doing good always, but you also to balance. And you have that itch to see, okay, this is a parallel kind of industry. I can easily step into it. Is it possible for you guys to extend, or if I may say, repurpose your purpose and extend your purpose beyond what you're doing while continuing doing business and scaling it up? Is it possible?
It is, and it needs to be sort of done with care, right? See, the thing is, in the space that every brand is in, they're already fighting a constant battle. One is, everybody assumes that once you got in market shares, it's easy to retain it. Today, if Jio Hotstar gives up cricket, we know how much the decline is going to be on their numbers, for example, right? So retention is a critical battle on a day-to-day basis. But if you forget the day-to-day battle and start going to new battlefields, then you got wars on multiple fronts, which, as the Axis powers will tell you, in 1942 was a very, very bad idea. You can't go and battle on the left front and on the right front, basically, right? Choose your battlefield, choose the one thing that you want to do better than anybody else. That's what's going to hold you in good stead. Because if you go to a space that you don't understand really well, you are eventually going to get beaten at it just because your lack of awareness in that space is going to get shown up sooner or later. And let's also not assume that we are playing with other amateurs, right? Let's assume that everybody's a professional in this space. There are so many business owners, friends who start businesses who keep coming and telling me, look, I've got this. I think we should do this and I should do this. And I'm like, listen, everything that you start, like, especially when you come from a B2B space and you got one B2C brand, right? And they're so excited about starting 3 B2C brands and 4 B2C brands. And I'm like, buddy, the space that you're going to, right, has X number of competitors already. This is the kind of monies they've been playing with every single day. You have to outspend them from moment one to start taking away market share from those guys because they're well-known brands in that space. Think about how much of your economics are going to get upset across your businesses, not just that one business, by you pouring in so much money into one space. Think about how much of your profits is going to eat up from business B, C, and D. And you want to get into 4 battles like that, like really. So when they suddenly hear that reality check of, listen, this is the number of battles, because everybody just thinks that, oh, getting into this is going to be a cakewalk. You will enter the business and the customer will say, Arey, aap aa gaye, let me give you business. Customer is not waiting for that. The customer doesn't give 2 shits about whether you're in the business or not. They're looking at it as, listen, uska 4 rupees 50 paisa hai, ye 4 rupees 60 paisa hai, main 4 rupees 50 paisa kharidunga. There are sometimes irrational decisions like that, right? So in that kind of a space, what are you really doing to sort of separate yourself, basically, right?
Great, I think that's a nice point on how do we relook at it. So Karishma, what's your perspective on how do you ensure that purpose also ensures profitability, but how do you continue doing that? How do you measure it?
So I think I've lived this through first hand. Because, you know, I've been a founder, I had founded a education venture, ran that for 7 years. And now I'm part of Thinkly for 5 years, employee number 1, so taking care of marketing alliances, business strategy. So I think when you look at, you know, purpose, and then how it is transferring into numbers, I'll probably give our example at Thinkly, right? So what you know, we realized when we are you know, starting out, our team is very lean. We don't have monies as much as, you know, we would have wished, because ultimately it's a startup. And you know, how we went about is, I have personally onboarded 200 plus thought leaders, business leaders. So Gurcharan Das, you know, Vikram Chandra, Anupama Chopra, Ravi Venkatesan, he's the you know, founder, chairman at Microsoft India. So people of that stature. When I went to them and I spoke about, you know, what we're doing with Thinkly, they all came on board, and you know, and they've come pro bono. There was no money exchange. So I think they came here not for scale, right? But they came here because they saw that they could trust us. There was an intent here. I think that lives up to the purpose, right? And if you ask me, did it, you know, translate into immediate ROI for us? No. You know, and me personally, after getting so many people, I was like, kya yaar, matlab numbers hi nahi aa rahe, karu to kya karu? But trust you me, after that, touchwood, things just, you know, started falling into place. So we've done like 450 podcasts, we have 60K subscribers, you know, we have thriving communities, you know, and this is all measurable, right? So while you're a startup, it is very, you know, tempting, if I can say this, by my followers, jack up the numbers, you know, have those misaligned partnerships. But honestly, when you do the things right, it is very painful. And you question yourself every day whether it makes business sense. But, you know, going back to age-old, you know, saying, दो रास्ते हैं, एक कठिन है, time लगेगा, एक shortcut है, अभी result मिलेगा. So I think, and this is honestly applicable to any business, that, you know, you will get opportunities wherein you feel, let me just pick this up, let me just, you know, पैसा आ जाएगा company में, salaries pay हो जाएंगे, there are so many overheads, right? Especially as a startup, you don't, like I said, sit on the kind of, you know, funds that a Tata would. So I think that's why I say that I've lived through this, even in, you know, education for that matter. So, you know, we were clear that we wanted to be a safe space. We wanted to be, and it was not just a preschool, it was also a daycare, which we ran 8 to 8, Monday to Saturday, way back in 2008. So, you know, getting a child nutritionist on board, getting a special educator there, and all of these cost money. But ultimately, it's word of mouth. And we were considered, you know, competition by the Euro kids and the kangaroo kids of the world. So I think, like I said, purpose tests your patience, but ultimately the rewards more than make up for it. So I think that's been my personal journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first of all, you need to believe your purpose yourself, and you need to have that believability, patience, and able to sustain that and live it up. Marketing, obviously, you can put marketing monies behind it and grow it up, but over a period of time, consumers see through it, right? If it doesn't really project your purpose, and like the earlier panels talked about how the Gen Z is today very looking at purpose and maybe sustainability too in everything they do. So I think purpose is also something consumers are also going to be really close to, and they will believe brands who genuinely live the purpose. So I completely align with what you're saying. So Ashutosh, in your piece of consulting, when brands come to you, do they come with a purpose, or it is just about solving some business problem? And how do you see it as an opportunity for you to, build together, use the purpose and try to build your business? And how do you make it more profitable?
Sure. Well, firstly, for consulting, it's difficult to get money from the clients because these days they get consulting free from ChatGPT. So you got to give value to get money. And I have a simple answer for this question, right? Purpose to profitability. It's one line answer. Purpose reduces friction, and reduced friction drives profitability. And tell you how I operationalize this as well. And I get money for this, I get paid for this, so it works. I've proven ROI on this, right? See, I call it brand promise architecture, but I've promised to not give you jargon, so I simplify this. First things first, I completely agree with your answer that it's leader installed. You know, purpose has to be leader installed, system driven, individual sustained. You know, so what I mean is I work with the leaders to recraft the brand purpose in a simple way, not the example I gave you, but a very simple way which defines what the organization stands for. That's number one, I call it brand promise or brand purpose or whatever you call it. Then I break it down into functional promises, because if you have a brand purpose clarity, you can now ensure what it means for marketing, what it means for sales, what it means for operations, what it means for, you know, supply chain and what you will, right? So the functional promises are crafted. Once I have the functional promises, I break that functional promises into team and individual KRA KPIs. It's a proper OKR exercise, organizational key results, right from top down. What are the organizational goals broken down into individual KRA KPIs, and all of this is aligned to the brand purpose, because truly what it does is, you know, you're not wasting time on a customer because you know it's a wrong customer. I know my purpose. I'm serving a specific type of a customer. I'll focus all my energies on that. I save a lot of money because I'm marketing to the right individual. I'm promising the right things. I'm pitching the right things. I'm ensuring the right delivery. It really is a lot of less friction. And I'll give you a quick example. I know we are short on time. I'll give you a quick example on this. I have a B2B tech client. You know, it's a customer experience management platform. Very simply, what the platform does is, you know, the standard surveys, online reviews, social listening, everything gathered, analyzed, insights given, and action being taken. And they have a freemium to premium kind of business model. They attract a lot of freemium users and then try to convince them to get into a premium band. Now, one of the leaders I was working closely with was the customer success leader and the customer support leader. And his KRA KPI was, I want to ensure my complaints time, turnaround time is reduced. That if I take a day to resolve this, I would want to resolve this in 2 hours or 1 hour and so on. And Ashutosh helped me do it, right? Now I asked him a question back. Fine, there are multiple ways in doing this. Now we live in the world of AI and bots and NLPs and LLMs and so on. There's a lot that we can do here. But what if, instead of reducing the turnaround time, you were to just ensure the complaints don't come? Why do you want to reduce the resolution time when you can actually reduce the number of complaints you get itself? And his question back to me was, this is a good point. You know, I know where you're going. You know, out of all the 100 complaints I get, there's a 80-20 Pareto's principle. 20% of the complaints might be driving 80% of the volume. So if I resolve 20% of reasons why the complaints come, the number of complaints drop. But his immediate question was, but that's not my job. Because if I go back to the products team, the product team is going to say, hey, there's a development time, there's a development cost, why should I pay for it? What's the ROI? When you will get the dollar back? Why should I do it? Right? Now that's an organizational silo at work. That's a conflict of interest or conflict of KRA KPIs. So when I work with the brand purpose top down, what it does is the same purpose goes back to the product team. You are yourself in the business of customer experience management. What experience are you giving to your customers? That you will have complaints, you will have problems, we'll resolve it, don't worry. Or you won't have problems. What do you want to go back to your customers with? Now, with that purpose, this customer support guy can go to the product team and say, we are working for the same thing, let's work together and close it. And the moment I did this, the immediate impact was his hiring pipeline came down drastically. He no more needed the people that he would have otherwise needed to resolve the complaints. Immediate boost was the profitability. And the last point is, you know, if you are in the kind of dream world that I am very clear on my brand purpose, so pay me more, not going to happen. You know, why should I, and we discussed this, right? You know, if somebody is getting it for $4.5, why would I pay $4.6, right? You know, that's the world we live in. So just because I'm clear on my purpose, nobody's going to pay me more. So profitability won't come because I get more better price. It'll come because you have lesser costs. And again, therefore, I'll summarize by saying, you know, purpose reduces friction, and reduced friction leads to profitability. That's the right way.
Sorry, AI gets a bad reputation, yeah? You're taking away more jobs than AI is.
No comments.
But Ashutosh, I think great. I think I completely agree. It has to be top down. I think Karishma mentioned a beautiful example of Taj. And I was listening to one session of Puneet Chatwal the other day, who's the MD and CEO of IHCL. He showed his journey about how they came back after the 2611 episode, and how they have stuck with the purpose of serving the way they are, and now they have really moved in terms of profitability as well, I think, from where they were and where they are today. So I think, yeah, you're right. It has to be driven from the leadership level, and it has to flow through the organization. So yeah, great. I think we are running out of time. So Kushal, I'll come to you for the last points. What is your take on this?
So I'll actually talk about something that we did for across two organizations essentially. This is an example from an organization that I was working for long time back. This is a company called WRMS, Weather Risk Management Services. The idea essentially is very simple: for farmers to farm smart, secure tomorrow. All right. Now, I know it's a jargonized term, and so we essentially created this product called SecuFarm, which is an income-assured, smart, and sustainable farming. So again, sustainable, but yeah. Now, a lot of farmers, for the farmers, this is the biggest problem, that whether to get into the sustainability jargon, whether to invest in it, and obviously back then sustainability was not such a big piece. But we were able to drive their revenue essentially by saying that, again to his point, to reduce the cost, so to speak. So, for example, if you are following a certain principles, following a certain guidelines, so to speak. You are creating a product that is sustainable, say, by the use of less water, less pesticides, fertilizers, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, because that product is now organically sourced, is now, again, the term you guys said not to use, but sorry for that. Because it was organically sourced, created organically, grew up organically, to ensure that that ended up getting a lot of business for the farmers, so to speak. And this idea of how can you make them believe, that whatever investment they are doing is actually a long-term investment. It's not a short-term investment. I mean, at the end of the day, I was essentially selling IoT to the farmers. To think of IoT and farmers in the same thought is impossible, right? But we were able to do that because at the end, we were sure that, what we want to achieve, what we want our customers to achieve, and the route could be any, it's that it has to, again, to his point, it has to trickle down. Your systems have to be created and systems have to be deployed so that, and it will ultimately result in the right goals in itself. So that purpose was very clear to us. The purpose trickled down to our customers very clearly. The purpose resulted in the revenue generation very clearly. And then, the likes of a PepsiCo, the likes of, leading cotton brands, all of them, they started procuring from these farmers, so to speak. But I think there was this point around, in the previous discussion around, at the end of the day, the scale. So while all of this is happening, the scale was important to ensure, which is a function of a lot of principles. So it's not always in control. So that's one way, and I wanted to just give this anecdote to talk about how all of this, these jargons, so to speak, or all of these promises actually led to the growth in revenue, led to the growth in profitability with ensuring that purpose. That's part one. But now I'll actually talk about my current organization. So we always talk about, unlocking new revenue for our customers. Now, unlocking new revenue, while there are products that do that, we have our revenue management solutions, we have marketing solutions, we have what's called distribution solutions. But then that is not just the only way you can, solve their problems. And I'll also touch upon the authenticity and visibility POV that that the previous question was supposed to answer. So we realized that there is, when I joined 3 years back, my goal was very simple that, one obviously is I need to convey the communication right, but what other information, what other education piece can I impart to them that will help in unlocking them new revenue? And I don't know how many of you know when GA4 actually came into being, and the shift from GA4 from UA to GA4. It was just mind-boggling for any marketer who uses this day in day out to just map those marry those numbers. For the hospitality industry, it was extremely crazy. They had zero idea, and I started off by doing one simple thing: creating content for how do you use GA4, how do you take care of new insights. And cut to the next time they were at a conference, they actually were starting, they actually started citing those pointers for, for that worked in their benefit, and actually resulted in them seeking out RateGain as a partner for driving digital marketing solutions. And that's when I actually thought of creating what is called, what is actually became a great campaign for us, called the State of Distribution Report. When it started, it was not with the idea of this being a campaign, but with the idea of this being actually something which helps the customer, so to speak, and we did not want our names on it, we did not want anything on it. This was a benchmarking report, because a benchmarking report on technology was missing in the past. So while there are a lot of players who talk about how do travelers operate, how do businesses operate, there was no other benchmark around what is the technology investments like, what do hotels in general, are they reducing size, or where are the teams and education goals changing, and so on and so forth. When this report came out, incidentally, because this report was created with complete authenticity, we did not use any AI piece to get the analysis done. So it saved us quite a few dollars, as opposed to the likes of what we saw in the US case, in the Australia case that happened. But when we did that, we started getting a lot of opportunities to speak at events, to talk about what we sought out to achieve and what we actually learned out of that, and why this was important. Doing that, we were able to build that credibility for us. We were able to create that leadership space for us, leadership buy-in, despite the fact that the report did not carry our name. Because we were invited everywhere to talk about it, we actually started making revenue from all these events, which were just educational events. So within the first 6 months, I was able to drive a 50 crore pipeline from a place wherein there was zero investment, and wherein we had never imagined pipeline to be created. So we got that for us. So if you're true to your purpose, you will always find, you'll find ways to get profitable. It might not be the same route, it might be a different route, but at the end of the day, if you are trying to solve for the same problem, there will always be revenue coming in.
Great. I think thanks for that, Kushal. But what the common things which I'm hearing is purpose is core, of course, and to any brand is a foundation, like I said. And if done truly and it runs through the organization, I think there's no way that you won't be able to make profit out of it. And there has to be a balance, of course. It cannot be just purpose, but you also have to do it in the right way. So yeah, I think what we all agree is that purpose is the core of any brand, and I think everybody has to have a purpose, genuine purpose, not just from a profitability standpoint, and do a balance about it. Alok is giving me the looks for the time, so I think we will end it here. Thank you, panelists, for the very interesting session. I hope everybody enjoyed the discussion. Thank you so much.